What about you? You're awfully quiet over there.
I'm compassionate, I'm hardworking, and I'm lit.
Yes, I am the goddamn king. Yes, Henny and Red Bull give me wings. Yes.
You should just marry her. She'd marry you in a second, you get the papers, and then you'd be good. That's it.
Everyone knows what fake marriage is like. Immigration, they grill you until you slip up. What kind of lotion does she wear? What's it smell like?
Musa, you're her boyfriend. Don't you know what she smells like?
I'm not going to lie to you. This is not going to be easy, and each of your cases is obviously, very different. Political asylum isn't the only way to go, but it's my understanding it's best for, young people like you.
What material have you found so far?
Just the stuff that you know already.
And does Isaac think that's enough?
I don't know.
You need to find him what he's asking for. There's no guarantee here.
What your family is doing to you is not right. It's called neglect. This is neglect. And I'm pretty sure it's something else, too, isn't it?
We can't talk about these things at school anymore.
Why didn't you tell me?
I'm so sorry.
No, don't do that. This.
You think you're an American? Well, you're not. And they will never let you be.
What, Tiffany?
Did I say something to you?
Whoa, stop, don't run. Let me see some IDs.
We didn't do anything.
Your parents know you're here?
How could I think I had anything to teach these kids about reality?
Congratulations on the film. This is the second time I've seen it. The second time we're talking. We got to talk at South by Southwest last year during its premiere, right?
It's lovely to see you again.
Lovely to see you.
This is great. Look at that.
Yeah, everybody loves this. They come here, they see their poster right here, they love it. They freak out. Let's talk about the timing of the release of this film. This is a film about a group of undocumented kids in New York, and their sort of struggle to get documented and the existential struggle that goes along with that, and living their lives and graduating from high school. Obviously, you wrote this probably 2-3 years ago, right? Isn't it based on a one-act play that you put together?
Yeah, I directed a play for the New York Fringe Festival, which Kate Ballin, my co-screenwriter, wrote, and then she and I adapted it for the screen, and it kind of came together pretty quickly. And it was in the beginning of, God, what year are we in? 2015, right? We shot it, yeah. The beginning of 2015.
Shot the film.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then edited it. And for us, it was a very important subject. We, went deep into it, and so it became a part of our lives. And, once you go into something like that, it's very difficult to ignore it. And so it's always, they're always the stories that I gravitate to when I read the newspaper. I have friends now who are undocumented or formerly undocumented that we worked with while we made the film. And so to have the rest of the country and the rest of the world, make it such an acute issue now.
Sort of suddenly start catching up to it because we have a current president that is sort of speaking in very harmful rhetoric. We're sort of yet to see whether or not his policy in regards to undocumented immigrants is that much stronger than the previous president.
But there's an urgency to the language that everyone's using, which is a great thing. Not great what's happening, but it's great that there is at least an awareness now. It's very frightening, obviously, but for me, making the film was always a personal project. I wanted to show the faces behind the policies and the people that get affected by the politics. I never thought of myself as a very particularly political person, and I believe that obviously politics don't exist without the people that get affected by the politics, and politics exists in our lives personally.
It's cliche to say, but the personal is always political.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. And like I think Thomas Mann said, everything's political. Like everything. Anytime you interact with someone, it's involved. And so for me, the idea was to show the human side of this. And as I said, we became close to a lot of people who are affected by this.
So your co-writer, who you wrote the one act with, was a teacher herself, right? And that's where the story came from?
Yeah, so Kate worked in the Bronx for many years, working as a teacher in these schools and met a lot of these undocumented kids. And so she wrote a play that was about 3 undocumented kids in the Bronx, an African boy, a Peruvian girl, and a Dominican girl. And that's kind of where the similarity to the film stops in a way. It was a very, very political piece, and, you know, it was something we worked hard on and we were proud of, but I wanted to go home with the kids and learn about their lives. And for me, the interesting part of the story is just when these young people are finding their voices and working out what kind of human beings they're going to be, they're told to shut up, look down, don't exist. And
at a time of your life where, as you said, all you want to do is exist. I remember being a 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid, and I was desperate to be validated in my existence.
I was
yelling
a
at
moron
everybody all the time.
when I was 17. I didn't know who I was, and I can't imagine having to face these very adult problems, much more adult problems than most of us have to face, and to be that young. And so that's the kind of tension that I thought was interesting in the film to explore.
Joe, what kind of research did you do going into it? I mean, obviously, there's a lot to tackle there. You can either just sort of go by the script itself, or you can, you can see what can inform your performance.
Well, first off, I was fortunate to speak with some of the students that that Kate knew, and got a rough idea of what their experience was. So it was great to actually talk to someone who has experienced this and really connect with them and what that was like for them. And then my character, he's Muslim as well. So having to research Islam and understand what real Islam is, and not the fear that surrounds us, but understand that it's a language of love. That's what Islam is. It's pure love. So doing that research, and then just thinking back into my own existence of when I was 16, 17 years old, and what that was like, and just the feelings of identity. Who was I back then, and how can I inform this experience? But always trying to be as honest. And Matt and Kate, they wrote an amazing script that's just, on the page, it's so honest. And then, working with Matt, it was just easy to breathe life into this character and to be as honest as I possibly could to this experience. Not trying to act or do anything, but just be and live in it and live in that truth. And it's scary. There's some scary things.
I want to stick to From Nowhere, but I have to say, I mean, did this at all inform your Homeland performance? I mean, all the words that you're saying are like, I can imagine a Homeland casting director having seen From Nowhere, like, great.
Right, yeah, no, it did. I'm almost certain between Quantico, Homeland, and From Nowhere, being in this world, the FBI was tapping into my computer because just like...
And alerting casting agents?
Exactly. Just kind of learning, because you want to, when you get Homeland or do this movie, you realize there's a responsibility. There's a responsibility to this community of people. I'm not Muslim, however, I understand what it's like to be a minority. And I also understand certain privileges. Well, I learned certain privileges that I have as just a regular black man in America over these other, communities. And so really delving into the research and just trying to be as humanly truthful and stick to that as I possibly could. So, yeah.
Matthew, there's a great line in the film. I'm not sure if it was in the trailer right now, where I think Jay's character says, I didn't know I was undocumented until someone told me, essentially. I think that's the line, right?
That's right, yeah.
That is incredibly powerful for someone, a teenager, to know. The weight that would carry on their identity is huge. How did that translate into the story? And did that come from a place that you knew? Did you hear someone say that?
Yeah, we had a lot of, we had a lot of stories from young people, but for me it was all about, I don't know, the identity and trying to relate to it as much as I could as a confused human who, and being a kid and finding out who you are. And if we all have things in our lives that, we have good and we have bad. And I remember one of, the play actually was called No One Asked Me. And that was one of the most, it's one of the most common things that the kids who get kind of caught, brought in or caught say. They say, no one asked me, because they were brought here when they were infants sometimes. And America is the only place they've ever known as home. It can be the case for some of these kids. And so the idea of finding this thing out about you must be devastating. And I think one of the themes in the film is secrets, because Moose's mother has the information that could help him. She has this piece of information about what happened to his father, and she lied about it when he was young, and the lie has gone on for 15 odd years, and it's just, she's past that exit. She can't go back. Of course she can, but what the things we do to ourselves about how we feel about the things in our lives, we make them bigger than they are sometimes. And I think the tragedy is that she could help her son, but in wanting to protect him, she ends up hurting him.
Now, as you said, you started shooting this in 2015. I think and it premiered at the 2016 South by Southwest Film Festival. The campaign between the Donald Trump campaign didn't really take off until I think a little after that film festival, when it really started to ramp up. What was it like for the both of you to have done so much research on this, to have cared so much about our country's sort of most vulnerable citizens who need our help, to watch the rhetoric of quote-unquote illegals and deportation forces sort of really take off and also gain a lot of traction and support amongst a number? I mean, he won the election, so a lot of support amongst the people of this country.
Look, I was at the Women's March one weekend, and then I was at the airport the next weekend. Like, let me tell you, I couldn't have possibly worked and been more proud to work on this and Homeland, you know, to play two Muslim characters right now, you know, because it's crazy what's happening right now. It's just it's crazy, and I love the fact that I actually have a voice and a platform to openly speak against this, because, you know, America, for all intents and purposes, this is the land for everyone. You know, we're all in some kind of way an immigrant, you know? So I just think it's, when we made this movie, I have to say, last night when we watched it again at the premiere, it resonates even differently now than it did back when we watched it last year, South by Southwest, or even the screening. Because in the film, he says, you know, every time it's mentioned, oh, you know, we'll wait for the laws to change. Oh, we'll wait for the laws to change. It's scary because now we have this administration, and you know that's totally against their agenda. You know, it's chilling.
Absolutely. I watched the film at South by when I interviewed you guys there, and I said I watched it this morning. Every line of the film suddenly has incredible resonance and power.
There's an amazing thing that I wrote that Julianne said, that the teacher Julianne says at one point, where she says, you know, America is a place where, you know, you have the freedom to make choices and you have the freedom to try here. And that is something that I absolutely believe, because I experienced it. Because, you know, despite my accent, I'm not from Brooklyn. I love
Queens? It's a Queens accent,
that's right? Texas. I love being in America. I'm a proudly Australian-born, and I now live in America, and I love being here, and that's how I feel about the country. It's how I absolutely still feel about the country. And I heard the line. I didn't watch the film. I sort of walked in and out of the screening last night and just made sure everything was going okay. But I heard her say that line, and it had a different resonance last night. And what my instant thought was, it still is. I still think that, and it still is that place for me. And I almost felt like it was nice to be reminded of that. Certainly how I feel about you know, the people I love and the people I know and all the great people I've gotten to work with. And as much as what's going on is scary and it's something that has to be paid attention to, I also felt really grateful to be reminded of that.
I also feel like it's forcing us to stop taking certain things for granted, which I think is part of why there are parts of this film that resonate so much more. Yes,
I think that on a larger scale, like now that it's more aware for everyone, but I think if you're a minority, then you already have been, you've already been nervous, you've already been working through fear and whatever, you know, you've already been adjusting or getting through. It's just that now everybody can see it. Everyone's aware.
I'll adjust my answer by saying those of us who operate from immense privilege are suddenly more aware.
Yes, right.
That was something very powerful for me, working with Jay, and you know, we had lots of conversations about that. Not even about being, you know, the immigration, but you talked a lot about your experience of life.
Yeah.
And I found, you know, one of the great things about working on the film, which is why I love doing the job that I do, is asking 1,000 questions and admitting you don't know. I mean, I feel, I don't know about you, but I feel like I do work to find things out rather than tell anyone anything.
The research is the best part, usually.
Yeah, and even making a film, helps me answer questions that I don't know the answer to, as opposed to trying to put forth some kind of, manifesto or some kind of idea. And, talking to these wonderful actors I got to work with and collaborating so closely with them, you guys educated me on how we approach things.
And to your credit, Matt, I mean, it was amazing to have someone who was so open to hearing, because, we're all three minorities, the leads of this film, people of color who come from very different backgrounds. And one thing that I'll say again that I learned throughout making this film is even my own privilege of being, just an African-American male, but there's still things that I deal with, and you are open to learning about that, because sometimes you get directors that are like, this is my vision, just, okay, but it is very much a collaborative process, especially on material like this. If you want to do it right, you have to listen. We all have to listen,
And talk about the kind of aesthetic that you create with the film that gives you the chance to listen to people rather than just sort of dictate a particular vision.
I believe in the actors more than anything else. I think I like making films about people, and the approach I take is very organic. I think I'm not one of those people that believes in forcing someone to move towards something just because it's in the script. The script is, a blueprint that we work with. I sometimes think, I started as an actor, and sometimes I'd be working as an actor and doing a scene, and it's like going on a date. We're at a date. We don't have to concentrate on these round objects in front of us with food piled on them and these things we use. We take that we know all that. We know how it works. In a script, we've got a scene. We actually have it written out. We know how it ends. We know everything that happens in the scene. That's kind of done. What interests me is how we get there. What are the problems that we face? What doesn't resonate? What are the ideas that Jay has? What's the thing that sticks in his mouth that he can't say? Why can't he say it? And I think they're really important things. I always am alert to those things because there are gifts to be had in those areas. Anytime something goes wrong or there's a problem, I feel like there's something to learn from it. And I always find if I'm alive to those things, the group moves forward together, and that's the greatest thing about it. So it's all just about the personal, really.
So it's a bit more of a, for lack of using a cliched word at this point, an improvisational feel?
There's a little bit of improv in a lot of the scenes, moments here and there, and other areas that are completely tightly scripted. Some of the scenes in the film that feel the most improvised are actually like tightly scripted down to the ellipses, and then there are other scenes like some of the classroom stuff where didn't exist that morning, and I said, let's all go in the classroom, and gave everyone, conflicting objectives, which Julianne was, which she found wonderfully challenging, and then rose to the occasion and kind of kicked everyone's butt.
Talk about Dennis O'Hare, who is wonderful in the film. But what's so great about his part is the way that you sort of turn the page on him and you kind of keep revealing him. Because initially he comes across as cold, as quite cold to these kids. But it's also that's just because that's his job and he's seen so many come and go. Initially, that lawyer was going to be a pro bono lawyer working in the Bronx in a tiny little office. I can't swear, can I? I was going to say shitty office. And I thought much more interesting than that was someone who had never done this before and who was doing this as a favor and who had to learn at the same time as we, the audience, were going to learn, because also that's a nice device to help us learn because we can learn with him and he can help us. And that turn that he has with Octavia's character, Sophie, Dennis and I talked about that moment when he looks at this young woman and thinks, in 10 years' time, am I going to think, I wonder what happened to her? All I have to do is lean forward. I've had people in my life lean forward and help me and put their hand out, and they can be very, very important moments. And I think it is nice, apart from Dennis being an absolute genius, incredible actor. I was blessed on this film with every cast member. I think that there's something very powerful when someone goes from apathy into
absolutely empathizing and caring with someone. And I guess I wanted to have that moment and what it does to her. Interestingly, there's two mentors in the film, both with the right intentions, both from a white, from a privileged background, who haven't faced the kinds of things that Jamal was talking about.
Haven't faced the system.
Haven't faced the system at all. And with the best possible intentions, one of them makes a mistake and sets Jamal's character on a path that is very surprising, that I don't think we see coming at the beginning. And one of them leans forward and listens. And the one that listens ends up helping the person he's trying to help. And I thought that was an interesting thing to look at.
I just want to clarify the word system just because of the current culture that we live in. I don't necessarily mean like a system that needs to be taken down or broken apart. I just mean bureaucracy and sometimes the necessary bureaucracies that go into these stories and these people's lives. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad system. I feel like that word has become pejorative for some reason. Let's open up to the audience for questions. Right here, you have a microphone.
Hey, I'm looking forward to seeing the film. As Muslim immigrant myself, like I would appreciate you telling the story.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from Pakistan. But, I was wondering, like, have you gotten any reaction to the film, or have you tried showing it to some places where they're not that familiar, or there might be a, afraid of immigration, or more like, right-leaning side?
I've only experienced individuals at the screenings, but I have experienced people coming up to me with that look in their eye of going, that was really interesting. And I could tell that it had hit something in them that they maybe hadn't thought of. I haven't blatantly been told that, but I certainly have felt that, that sense that someone maybe saw something I didn't expect, which is really lovely. It's actually the best. All the other stuff that goes with anything like this is great, but when you feel like you maybe, I don't know, changed someone's mind or made them think about something, they're the films that I love.
So no one's approached you and said, I wanted all the illegals out of this country, but I saw your movie and now I'm volunteering.
I should say yes. Yes, that happened. Absolutely, it's actually happened again and again and again. I hope it does make people think and make people realize that there are beating hearts that go with these decisions. I think that can be forgotten.
Next question.
Hi guys. So obviously this film is so socially relevant right now. So are there any other kind of social topics that you haven't quite explored yet that you would like to in the future?
I actually have a film I'm working on. It's at the moment about the incarceration and the prison system, and a young public defender working with an individual, a woman who has just gotten out of prison. So that's a project I'm working on at the moment. What about you?
Well, I'm just coming off.
You've always got a million things you're cooking up, man.
I'm just coming off of Homeland and Quantico and this. I think now I need a comedy. I need something. Something.
I have an idea. I thought of an idea this morning for that.
Did you?
We can talk about that.
Jay, can we talk about your threads? This is amazing. What are you wearing here?
Oh, this is this amazing company called Stuzo Clothing. They're out of LA. However, I live in LA, and I was driving down my neighborhood, and I saw this outfit in the window, and I said,
it's incredible.
I was like, I need that outfit, and it's so, it kind of reminds me of my character and just his life, and I researched the founders of the company, went in, met them, and turns out that the owner of the company, she was an immigrant, and she was an undocumented immigrant here in New York. And up until she was 17 years old, that's when, it worked out for her. But I was just like, yes. So
I was almost going to wear the same outfit. That would have been embarrassing.
And it's Valentine's Day, so,
You look
Valentine's
amazing.
Day, everyone.
I think we have time for one more question right here.
Hi. So since, like you were saying, the work was based on a play, I was wondering when you were translating it to the screen, what were you most excited to be able to convey in that medium?
Being able to, theatre is wonderful. I theatre trained and I've done a lot of theatre. Theatre's great because you get to experience the entire story every single day. At midday, that at 11 o'clock you're going to be bleeding to death on stage that night, having gone through the whole journey or whatever. With the film, I was excited about the multi-storytelling aspects, being able to follow each of the characters home, juxtaposing each of their stories. And on film, the great thing is you get to shoot, you know, 8 different takes of something and go around the world and then put it all together later. So I was really excited about what we talked about, learning and not actually knowing how I was going to approach this, not being of that culture, of any of these cultures, and not having experienced the things that they've experienced. I knew that I was going to have opportunity to learn, to work with the actors and, you know, find things out on the fly. I like working in the moment and keeping it pretty, you know, alive. And that's the great thing about making films. So I was really excited. The play was its own thing, and it was a very simple piece of theatre that, we were proud of. But I was excited about the complexity and all the contradictions that we could put into this.
Guys, congratulations on From Nowhere. How can people see the movie?
It's playing at the Village East Cinema and the Laramie Music Hall in LA. And it opens on Friday. Please go and see it. If we get a good attendance this weekend and next weekend, then they'll give us some more time. And then it comes out on demand on March 20th.
Congratulations, guys. Thank you so much
Thank
for being
you for
here.
having us.
Absolutely.